Hey, Nicole, what'd you learn today?
I learned that bonnet or no bonnet, it's super complicated and gray at best.
I could see that.
And what did you learn today?
I learned that the world is back open and I'm going to need to do a lot more peopling, and I'm not sure I am ready.
Ready for it.
Not sure I'm ready.
Join us some more conversation on it.
Welcome to the Hallspace Podcast.
Welcome, welcome.
Welcome to the Hallspace Podcast. It's about connections. I'm your host, Dr. Ritch Hall, and this is a weekly conversation about whatever and however I see to connect things. For people who want to connect, chat, and learn a thing or two about a thing or two. Without further ado, let's start the show. Welcome to the Hallspace Podcast. I'm your host, Ritch Hall, and I'm here with my lovely and capable wife,
Nicole Hall. Hey there.
Hey.
How are you?
Doing pretty well. Can't complain. It has been an eventful June so far, and we're only a few days into it.
Right. It is just a weekend, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so things are definitely into the swing of what looks more like summer.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you, we got some shout outs. I was with family yesterday. We took the kids to their first birthday party yesterday. It's the first time they've been at an event in over a year and a half.
Yep.
Since February of 2020. And so their favorite cousin, Zach, had his birthday party. Shout out to Zach. He's now 10 years old.
Happy birthday, Zachalak.
Yeah. Doubt that he hears this, but, you know, it
Yeah.
exists. And so our kids, Richie wanted to wear a full coat. Both Richie and Daniel wanted to wear full coats because they were afraid of the cicadas.
Right. They didn't
Cicadas are still a thing here.
To touch them, yeah.
Cicadas are real thick.
They're in full swing now.
Real thick. It's droning.
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't pick up in the recording today. I heard it right before I put the headphones on.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it's being picked up by the mics.
I hope not. You know, I feel like when I'm on my calls, because I have my headphones on and stuff like that, they could probably hear it.
Yeah.
Just because any background noise comes through.
Because it feels like it's everywhere.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, when I don't have the headphones on, I can hear it in the background, and I feel like I hear it into my head at night. Like it's still a noise.
It's loud like maracas loud. Like
it's like you live in a maraca.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all around you all the time.
And then in a few weeks it'll be like
silent again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was in Port Clinton, Ohio for my annual fishing trip and
went
did
fishing
not hear them.
With the uncles.
Yes, with my father and his brothers. They do a fishing trip.
Mm-hmm.
And none of them listen to the podcast, so I can make fun of them. Not really. I'm not really going to make fun of them. But it's a very interesting trip because it's a bunch of men on a boat, and if you're talkative, they will tell you to be quiet. Like they are two fish. They don't want music playing. They don't want talking.
They want to hear the waves.
And I'll be honest, like I get it now that I'm a father and a husband.
This is the only time you're getting your quiet.
Yeah, there was literally moments on the boat where I'm just staring out into the water like, this is nice. This is okay.
I really dig this.
I'm not having to save any lives or take care of anybody. I'm just going to sit here and enjoy this quiet for a day.
I'm telling you what, I'm a bit jealous. Mm-hmm. I don't really like to be on the water like that. I have the same, like you get.
Yeah, you take
you
Dramamine.
Get seasick. Yeah, I was going to say, I know you take the Dramamine.
All those manly men take Dramamine before they get on the boat. So they're not yucking over the side.
Yeah.
I was that guy the very first time I went fishing with them.
Now,
I threw up like 4 times. But now
right.
I know you take a pill and you're fine for the rest of the day.
Yeah, but the idea of sitting on a boat and just being quiet. I mean, I don't want to catch any fish or any of that, but.
Well, that's good because I didn't catch any fish.
You didn't catch any.
Yeah,
This is the first year
fish.
that you didn't catch any
First year
fish.
in a while. There was a time in the past I can recall catching 0 fish or not being able to catch any fish that you could keep.
And
so.
Yeah, I mean, and for those, like, I'm allergic, so you can't bring all this fish home and cook it for everybody. So,
well, I bring some. I get to bring some home. If you're on the boat, you get to bring some home for, like, they divide up all the fish that was caught amongst everybody. So it's like if I had caught 6 fish, I wasn't going to get to take 6 home. They would divide up, and if everybody on the boat caught a bunch of fish, everyone's allowed to take home at least 4. I'm sorry, everybody. There's a limit to how many you can catch. Everybody can catch up to 4 apiece on the boat.
I didn't realize you guys divvied it up equally.
Yeah, it is divvied up equally.
Nice.
And so you get to take home some fish no matter what, even if you had a bad fishing day. Some of my uncles don't even eat the fish. My Uncle Vince was like, I don't even eat it. He just does it for the sport.
Yeah.
I do eat it. I usually try and fry it up at some point when I'm here alone. But, last year and a half have not been here alone. But, we'll look forward to a time.
So they didn't do it last year.
Did not go last year.
And it's a tradition. COVID. And so you've been doing it for a number of years.
They said they've been going for 30 years. Yeah. I've been going for at least the last 10 to 12, 13.
I feel like it's been a long time since Ra.
Yeah, since the early aughts, since before
Ra. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's 11, so yeah.
So I've been going for at least the last maybe 15 years-ish.
So it's always the first week of June.
Always the first week of June.
What happens is you get that month off, and everybody's out of the house because they're either in summer camp and I'm at work, so you can fry the fish then for your fancy lunch, because Richie likes fancy lunches.
I am known to make myself a decent lunch.
You make lunch that's like a dinner. And it's like, how do you even stay awake the rest of the day?
Well, I don't have any. It doesn't matter because I'm not working.
Well, it's true.
So if I want to take a nap in the middle of the day, that's my prerogative. That's my business.
That's your business.
That's my business.
That's your business.
If I'm Tabitha Brown.
Right.
And so, I drive up every year, usually by myself, and meet up with the guys, and you say your pleasantries, and you go out in a boat, and you ride out about 30 minutes out into the lake, and it's just so peaceful, and so nice, and you try to catch fish. And my brother was there for the first time in a few years.
It's been a long time since.
It's been a while since he's been able to make it. Usually he has work obligations, and so he cannot attend. But this time he was there. He was there 2 days before me, and then so I did get to see him for the first time in a year and a half. And that was nice to see him.
Yeah.
We don't always get along because brothers, but it was still good to be around him and hang out a little bit.
And so it's the Hall boys by themselves in a hotel room, hanging out for the first time in.
Yeah. And my dad, who I love my dad. I'm glad I'm not his roommate. The original Hall boy. Yeah. My dad is not my type of roommate.
Your dad is like Ra, right?
Yeah, he's very much like my oldest son. So he's a very sort of
spreads everything out. He's got to see.
Yeah, kind of a sloppy kind of guy. Like, I mean, he's just very cluttered. He brings a lot of stuff with him.
It's the odd couple.
It's all over the room, and I'm kind of keep my stuff in one place. So as we're leaving,
so
he's
you don't lose it. Yeah.
He's like, I'm really glad that he said, this is the part I hate the most, having to pick everything up. And I'm like, well, if you didn't leave everything everywhere, you wouldn't have so much to clean up. And he's like, I gotta set up a base camp. And I'm like, okay, sir. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because our boys are like that, right? So Ra has to spread everything out.
Yeah.
He has football, he has soccer, he has basketball. He's got all these toys he's got to set out. Yeah. Even if he's not playing with them. And it drives Daniel crazy.
Yes, it
He's
does.
like, you're not even playing with these. Put it in the trash can when you're
Particularly since
done.
we have all these rules around making them clean up and all that. Yeah. So Daniel sees that as like, they're going to make me help you clean up your stuff.
Yeah, which is not fair. And it's not. But y'all both live in the same room.
Yeah, you live in the same room.
It's not fair
and we're a family. And why do I have to clean it up?
Well, I mean, it's not fair that I have to clean up after all of y'all, but I do because we want it to be
family.
Because
and that's part of the shared responsibility. I was left thinking about that a lot while visiting and hanging out with my dad and my brother. Like, we don't live together anymore, so there's a host of habits that they have, idiosyncrasies that I'm just not accustomed to, and which is particularly profound after having been home. Yeah. With my family for a year, like I've learned.
You're used to my mess.
I'm used to your particular type of mess. I'm used to working around my children in some degree. And so suddenly being in this situation, thrust into this situation with two other people whom I have not been living. I haven't lived with anybody that isn't these people, my people. Yeah. I haven't been out of town in over a year and a half. And it's like, oh, this is peculiar.
It's such a long time to not have been.
Well, for us, for people like us who go places, we tend to travel quite a bit.
From May until September, Labor Day, we are on the road nearly every weekend.
Like every other weekend or so.
Yeah.
We have a lot of like birthdays and stuff like that keep us in town. But we typically have a lot of adventures during the summer.
Yeah. And the thing I remember, there was, it got to the point where I was like, I need to schedule a weekend off in between because I can't even get the laundry done. and rest in between.
So often.
Yeah, because it was the time the kids are in school, right? You know, you get the month off, and you know, we just like
the
to
kids
travel.
Are usually in daycare,
or summer camp. Yeah. So it was like, okay, we got to do this, and I honestly, like, I remember it being stressful but fun, and I really missed that.
Yeah,
you know, we didn't go anywhere last summer. Yeah.
But it did help me to think in terms of being, you know, in that this year has helped me to be a little less, have a little less ego around what my needs are, in part because I've had to divvy up my attention for among so many people in the house right now.
Yeah.
It's like I could be frustrated with my dad for his particular brand of and style of living, but also it's like it doesn't actually affect me. Like it's just me, covering, judging according to my internal standards of what I would be comfortable with, but it doesn't actually affect me. So I was able to sort of leave that on the, like, oh, okay, he does this, I don't like it, you know, but it doesn't actually affect me. Let me just, you know.
And you don't live with them full time. So ultimately that kind of stuff doesn't matter as much. So
and I have my own stuff. Like I'm pretty sure I have stuff that annoys other people that I'm blind to. And so I can't be like, well, I hate that he left his socks just in the middle of the floor when, you know, I tend to leave my pants right beside the bed and I want them to be there when I wake up in the morning so I can put them back on. In the sweet spot. Right. According to, there was a joke on where he talked about like, these were not dirty. They were in the sweet spot, not in the hamper.
Not in the hamper, not in the drawer. And it's like, well, if you've worn them already, just put them in the hamper. No, they're not dirty. They're not dirty. I can wear them again.
But
they're not clean.
Very often you can wear jeans again multiple days if you want to.
So there's this space next to the bed called the sweet spot.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the one husband thing that you got.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways in which I'm not fully husband material.
No.
I have a little too many standards around cleanliness and organization.
I think for you, and this is just my observation of you, I think for you, you're like a sort of organized version of Ra, right? Like you can't.
That's the thing. I get him tremendously.
Yeah, because you were him, right?
Yeah, there was a time when I was, but
and now you're at this
because
point
I had my dad.
Yeah.
And used to hear mom complain about him being the type of person who spreads out all over the place. It was like,
and she to this day she is still still like he just puts that stuff everywhere. Yeah. And so you I
just learned to be
have,
like vigilant to that. Like don't be that person who upsets your wife on a daily basis by leaving stuff all around the house.
And then I just leave all my stuff.
And then I married a person who leaves her stuff all over the house. So it's like, oh, you don't even have, like I learned that very early in marriage too. Like you don't have my mom living in your head. You have your own grandmother who has her own weird ideas.
I ignore a lot. Well, no, it's I don't ignore it. I just we always had like those big cleanup days, right? Where you just clean up from top to bottom. So I make a mess, for a couple days, and then now I'm cleaning from top to bottom and, get it done. I'm not one of those people like clean up as you go.
Yeah, I'm usually a clean up as you go, or try to keep keep yourself.
You keep your footprint very small.
Yes, I'm very much a keep my footprint small. Like there's certain areas where I could spread out. Like my office desk is very cluttered. Yeah, but like I like to keep most. But
everything stays where it is, right? Like it's where you want it, and I'm sure you probably know where everything is. And I think for you, it helps you with your like ADHD and all that.
That's what I learned because in being a raw type person, Ra loses a lot of things. My oldest son, he loses a lot of things because
he doesn't
even
realize he has stuff. And
then he'll just sort of have to discover it. And I learned that if I spread out too much or I'm disorganized, then I'm going to constantly be looking for things and losing time and energy to that. And so it's like find a place for things and keep them in that place and don't move them. And so that works for me to maintain a certain level of order and organization. That's not to say that I'm the most organized. I'm constantly losing things. Still, not really constantly, but there are definitely times where I'm like, oh, what happened to that thing? The hard part is what happened to something now that I'm 40 years old and I now have maybe 30 years worth of history stuff. Like when someone asks me, my mom asks for, some documentation from 2017 and I'm like, shoot.
Don't even.
Particularly since at that point I've been through like 2 different computers and
hard drives and whatnot.
Hard drives have crashed. So it's like, oh, you're looking for a particular piece of information from years ago. Well, I've been sort of maintaining a certain level of organization around the present and not a good filing system for the past.
No, and it's how you survive, right? It's how you survive to do what you do.
Particularly in 2020 where it's like, there was a before 2020. Oh, yeah. You're right. I should have been doing better then.
2016, what?
Yeah. And since then we've moved, so it's like there's a host of things, host of challenges that led to several different reorganizations, and eventually I'll have to get back to being better about it. But anyway, so went on this fishing trip. Had to come home with my dad. It was me and my dad on a road trip. He fell asleep a dozen times because my dad always falls asleep in the car. We'd be driving and he'd be talking to me, and then he'd nod off. And then he'd wake up and try to continue the conversation as if 10 minutes hadn't passed. And I love him, but I'm like talking, and then I realize he's drifting out, and I'm like, oh, okay, so I can stop talking about this.
Yeah.
And then he'd be like, yeah, so that's crazy that happened. I'm like, Dad, I've already listened to like 4 different
stories
songs
later. Yeah.
And I'm now like trying to find a podcast to listen to for the rest of the drive. You don't have to like.
Not a great navigator, sir.
Yeah, you don't have to reinterject. Love him to death, but he's a little bit of I get my sleep apnea from his side of the family.
Yeah.
So, I know what it's like. I also can fall asleep anywhere, but just on long drives, he's going to nod off, and he'll come back to you. When he
tries to circle back.
Mm-hmm, he tries to because he's really interested. He just can't stay awake.
He is, yeah.
But yeah, we got home safely. Driving, like I said, Port Clinton, Ohio did not have cicadas. It wasn't until I got to about Dayton that I started seeing them again. So it was kind of weird to sort of come back, and that there were more of them. So.
Oh yeah, you were gone a few days.
Just a
day.
Just, a full 24 hours. I went up in the morning at 8 a.m. I got back by 4 p.m. the next day.
Yeah.
And in that time, it seemed like
everywhere.
They had even more exploded.
They're attacking the car.
Mm-hmm.
They're I used to be able to sit on the front and the back porch.
Mm-hmm. Now they're just
all
swooping
over.
everywhere.
They're all over.
There's somewhat of a magical quality to it. Like if you're just standing there watching, like these buzzing, fly creatures.
There is like this
from
symphony.
A distance.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But then you look at them like in the trees, and it just seems like the tree's alive with bugs. Like, like it's just constantly in motion because there's so many of them.
There is,
and then the sound is like it comes in waves at times. Yeah. It's like oh, and like up and down.
And it's funny because it seems in sync, which is the weird thing. It's not like crickets where it's like.
And when you're outside, you can hear multiple. Like you can hear it far away. You can hear the far away ones at a different tone than the close ones to you. So it's very strange to sort of be in the middle of all of it.
To listen to their communication style,
And it's such a weird time to be.
Don't touch me, though.
We're already only 2 weeks in. We got 3 more weeks of this.
No,
so
you said 3 weeks. What?
We got 3 weeks of this left. It's 6 weeks.
Oh, my God.
Well, I think we're 3 weeks. Are we 3 weeks in and we got 3 weeks left?
3 weeks in. We got 3 weeks left.
Yeah, I think.
I meant to look that up because I really.
Yeah, but they started emerging, I know,
it's getting
3 weeks ago.
It's getting worse, right? There are more of them.
I'm thinking we're getting to the peak soon.
Yeah.
But it is such an interesting sound.
So up north, they don't have them.
They did not have them in Michigan. I'm sorry. Well, we were on Lake Michigan.
But Port
Clinton, Ohio did not have them at all. And it was weird to hear the silence. And then to drive back, and within an hour or so, you start to hear the noise again.
All the noise.
Even as you're driving, you hear it. As you're driving down the highway, you hear them in the distance, like I said, around Dayton. And then today I was in Florence, and Florence did not have them. But also, Florence, Kentucky is very redeveloped within the last 10 to 20 years. So I'm assuming some of that.
Or no trees.
I'm assuming some of that is contributing. Like the airport didn't have them. But like when I drove a little further, when I drove out on the highway before I crossed over the bridge into Indiana, they had them. So
I bet you that
it might be just the development in Florence, basically overturned them or got rid of them. Because I went to the Sam's in Florence today, and it was like, oh, I don't hear the sound in the air.
Yeah.
And then by the time I was driving across the highway, I was like, oh, I see them again. They're bouncing off my window.
So you have a town like College Hill that's old and established. They're everywhere.
Yeah. And then here in Corrine Township, they're very overwhelming in certain places. So.
We're the cicada tree, y'all.
Yeah, we have the cicada tree on our street, so it's a lot of noise and a lot of dead cicadas everywhere around our yard.
Part of the reason why we love the house is because it's a great climbing tree.
The kids love the tree. It gives you shade. It brings a lot with it, but it also brings.
Didn't think about the cicadas.
Critters. Though. So there you go. We also have squirrels that live there. We have a full bird condo.
Got 9
different birds' nests in that tree.
Slumlords.
Right. We're slumlords. I wish I could charge them rent.
Right.
I need somebody to help put in on this mortgage.
Okay.
Since you're going to be occupying my space, I'd like to charge you a fee for.
You need to put in on this land.
A fraction of the land ownership.
Okay.
Some sharecropping, some bird sharecropping. So. Yeah. So our kids, we went out to a party, or I went out to a party. So I was
going to say, so you've had like this.
I've had so much peopling. So much peopling in the last
interactions.
3-4 days. Yes.
Yeah.
And I also go to work tomorrow, which will be interesting. But yes, I've done a lot of peopling in the last few days. So you're on the boat
with a bunch of people.
On the boat
nobody's
with 12
wearing
different,
masks,
at least 12 different men. Nobody was wearing a mask on the boat, but it's also outside open air.
Yeah.
Everybody's been vaccinated.
Vaccinated, yeah.
Everybody in our group, it was kind of a stipulation you could not go on the fishing trip if you had not been vaccinated.
I hear that. Yep.
And so it was interesting. The whole town of Port Clinton was pretty much wide open. Like a few people were wearing masks.
Yeah.
In Port Clinton, which was weird to come from here in Cincinnati, where there's a lot more people wearing masks and not.
It's one of those things.
We have not fully stopped doing it here.
Yeah, well, because you know what, it is mixed. So like for CVS, you have to wear a mask whether you're vaccinated or not. Mm-hmm. But I went to the chicken place Roosters, and they're like, if you're not wearing a mask, we're going to assume that you are vaccinated. Otherwise, we want you to social distance and put your mask on.
Yeah, it's a little crazy
because
I know the numbers in Ohio. We're not 70% masked yet. We're getting close, but we're not.
We're not.
Like, so everybody ain't vaccinated.
No, there are people who are raw dog in the air,
just out there. Yeah. Just sucking in air.
And I'm wearing my mask, and I am vaccinated.
Okay with sucking in other people's air. That's the weird part.
No, it's like.
And so that's strange to be around people who just, they were waiting for the opportunity to give up on it. And they act like it's over. Mom said that Rod told me that I told him that COVID was over. And I was like, I never said over at all. I said, people have gotten vaccinated, so some things have changed. Yeah. But I never said over. I don't know where he heard that.
No.
Or maybe he may have heard me saying people are acting like it's over.
Yeah.
Which I have been saying a lot.
But I mean, on this podcast, you've said many, many times, we're not done yet.
We are not done yet.
Yeah.
We are definitely not done with this yet. Yeah. There are still people getting sick. There are still people dying.
Yeah.
Of it. But there are some people who, have been vaccinated and still get sick because it's allowed to proliferate. There are variants out there.
I mean, just like with any virus, right?
Right.
So you go out to Port Clinton, you go there for 2-3 days, and then you come back, and then the boy's favorite cousin, Zach, has his birthday party.
Yes.
And
I take the kids to that. And so I see some family. And let's just talk about this for a second. And when people see you after, a year and a half.
It's been so long.
Everybody says, oh, hey, it's been so long.
Yeah.
Hey, it's been so long. Hey, it's been so long. They keep saying it. And it's like, we don't have to keep saying that.
Did you hug?
I did hug people. I mean, and people were vaccinated. So.
I wish I would have gone.
It was weird that they kept coming in for hugs too. Because it was like,
hugs.
Okay, well, I guess we're going to do this.
I'm a hugger.
Because, my natural default is we don't have to do the hugging.
But you're also like...
A lot of people did fist bumping, but every now and again, the ladies would hug, like Jasmine.
Bring it in.
My nephew, or what is he, my cousin's.
Your cousin's wife, Lance's wife. Fiance. Sorry. Yeah.
They're not married yet. They were having several conversations about a wedding, trying to figure out how to get the money down on that. I was giving them some pointers that I can remember from our wedding.
That's real talk.
Like she was like, "Can you take the pictures?" Like, "Oh, absolutely."
Yeah.
And we can mom can make the cake, and we can just do like we always do.
That saves you so much money when you have
I know some DJs that don't cost very much at all and are willing to do the halls a favor. DJ Mark Cox
or Nate Harris.
Yeah, British use Nate Harris. I use or my cousin PW.
Oh yeah, PW will do it. We use Nate Harris for your graduation party.
Yeah. And then Mark Cox did Bridget's.
Yeah, Mark Cox did Bridget's wedding.
Yeah.
He's family, so
he's family. He loves doing a favor for family.
Yeah.
We were talking about weddings, and it was good to be around family again and to just sort of enjoy fellowshipping, which you had not done in so long.
Well, and the interesting thing is, so we have our COVID circle, right? Which is us.
And my mom and my sister.
Bridget, right? And so Aunt Viola and Uncle Ron, they have their circle.
They were their circle. And when they got COVID, the circle got it.
The whole circle got it,
Our circle was able to avoid it. Only I got it.
Right.
But their entire circle got it.
Their entire circle got it. So Aunt Viola and Uncle Ron, they have 3 kids. Their kids have spouses and their kids. And so that's their circle. So you're blending... our circle with their circle, but I love hanging out with them. And
it was a very good time and a lot of jokes
I can't not hug you. It's just,
My Uncle Ron is a very funny, he's a serious man. He's a very funny man. He's weirdly a black Republican, which is a whole other thing.
He is.
But they just have a great sense of humor. So they're fun to hang out with and joke around with. And you're never quite sure when the joke has started. but you always just sort of go along with it.
Well, because he's got this dry humor, so he's got this straight face when he's saying it, and you're like, oh my God.
Or he'll kind of shout it sometimes.
Yeah,
like, he said, it's time to go. I got to go get my wife. He said, I guess I can go out there and say something to her, make her mad. And I was like, I don't think you need to choose that. Like, I feel like you have a lot of other options.
Choosing violence as opposed to violence.
And it's not necessary. Then he goes out there, you could hear him in the distance say, woman, it's time to go. And you know he doesn't mean that.
He doesn't.
But he had to do that. And they're just kind of used to each other after, 40 years of marriage.
Well, the funny thing is, whenever we're at an event, and this was one of the last events, and it's happened a few times where, like, I'll be sitting out with him and we'll be chatting, and he's like, I'm gonna have to go get my wife. I'm about to pick a fight. And it's
like, why would you do that?
He does it every time, and I'm like, I don't think that's a good idea. But if you get started, then maybe I'll grab my husband and we can go.
Yeah. And it's like, why would you do that? Because, why would any sane person choose that route?
Because y'all don't know how to stop a party. Y'all don't know when it's time to go to bed.
Well, the Wiggins, we hang out. We'll hang out well into the night, then take it to a secondary location and continue hanging out until people start nodding off, and then we're like, okay, it's time to go home. Somebody's gonna. Right. I got to drive, and I'm tired. And
Yep.
So yeah, it was fun to see people, and like I said, we got a few shout outs. Lance mentioned one of the jokes from my podcast.
Really?
Yeah, he was like, I love that story about Daniel, where he was like, I was a cat.
I was a cat.
I was a cat. And so that was kind of cool to hear people like saying my material back to me.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fun on the podcast, and so it's good to know people are listening and enjoying the jokes. Yeah. And I like telling the stories. So
yeah. And the fact that we haven't been able to be around them and tell these stories in person,
Yeah, and so I think about, just all the people who are, as the world is opening back up and people are getting vaccinated, it is a good time to spend time with people and to really sort of appreciate those connections because they are invaluable. And they are, some of what sustained us was knowing we would be back together at some point.
We took it for granted, right?
Yeah, it's inevitable to not take for some degree for granted. We were seeing each other all the time.
We were. And we enjoyed it every single time, though.
But it was also assumed. And last summer was, you can't just assume you're going to spend at least 2-3 weekends.
What do you mean we're not going to have Memorial Day at Uncle Beaver's pool?
Right. Or 4th of July with my grandmother and her family and all of that. Like
for her half birthday that we do every year now.
Half birthday we do in June. Yeah. It's just that without. My family is a very active family on both sides. Both my mom and my dad's family in different ways are pretty active and spend a lot of time with each other, and doesn't come with a lot. It's not those families where you loathe going or there's a lot of drama. Yeah. For those of us who are used to growing up with it, we just sort of welcome it, and it's just what you do.
It's good fun, and I love good hugs, man.
Yeah.
I do. I'm vaccinated. I'm ready to go places.
I am not ready to go places.
I know you're not, but you went a bunch of places.
Even having gone a bunch of places.
I was going to say you went a bunch of places.
Do I want to keep going places? That's what people keep asking. What are you doing for the summer? It's like, I have not really thought through the summer. Hey. Nicole wants to go places. This is my truly my byline. I have not thought about it. Nicole wants to go places, and I don't know.
I want to go places.
I would like you to get to go places. I would like to facilitate the going of places.
To go places. I keep asking
have I fully wrapped my head around the idea of where to go and why and when?
No.
I don't know any logistics right now.
All you have to do is say yes.
All
you have to do is say yes. Don't deny what you feel. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. That's...
Yes.
Flowetry. You guys
a little bit of flowetry. Yes, no. I feel you, and I'm not against it.
You're not against it?
I'm not against it.
Okay.
I'm just worried. So you're going to have to pull me into it, but I'll still go along.
I feel like I'm going to have to just put stuff on the calendar and put deposits
Pretty much. And I'm not going to, if we're talking about after the 14th, then the sky's the limit. Like, let
me say this, y'all. So the kids have had a great year considering the remote online learning, right?
Yeah, considering they were doing it in the middle of a global catastrophe.
Oh yeah, and and they had kind of me as their teacher or their learning coach.
And we were not good at that.
And we're not great at that. Gammy was great at it.
I'm only good at teaching at the college level. I am not good at
I don't want to teach second
middle
grade
school
and kindergarten
preschool
or any of that. Yeah.
I'm no good at that.
So all the kids have done well. They got all their assignments done. They all, go into the next grade. And I had this great idea that we would, one of the things that the kids love to do is swim and go to a hotel, right?
Yeah.
We live in a city. We can go to a hotel that has an indoor pool. And I booked that. I booked it. I'm totally going to do this.
Okay.
listen, just
what's the number of this bus that you're listen. Throw me in there?
I'm not gonna throw. Listen, I'm gonna add Bridget to it. I booked this hotel. I'm like, yes, it's right. You know, it's not too far from us. They got an indoor pool. I had stayed at that hotel before. It's one of my favorites for my mom's night off, or whatever. And I'm like, oh, the kids can swim, and then we'll go back to the hotel, hotel room, and hang out and eat pizza or whatever, as a way to celebrate, surviving the year. And I was telling Bridget about it, and the look on her face was like, that is the grossest idea I've ever heard. Yeah. And then you're like agreeing with her, like, oh, yeah.
I'm not so
I don't
certain.
know. Yeah. Oh, and the funny thing about that was, it was like, I mean, I didn't think about all the gross stuff, but so Trey Kennedy has a great video about staying in a hotel during the pandemic. And it was like, yeah, that's right. Oh God, that's super gross. And so like it hit me, and I was like, oh no, maybe I'm not as ready as I think I am. Right. I mean,
yeah.
My plan was to microban the whole room and just, live it up. But yeah, I feel like for the summer, what we'll do is we will, balls to the wall, right? Like if we're gonna blow our wad, we're gonna do it not in a Cincinnati hotel. We're gonna do it like realsies. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't care if we have to microban it and buy our own sheets and stuff like that. But if we're gonna take that risk, it definitely has to be near a beach. So
yeah, I'm not against the idea. It's just a matter of when.
Well, especially
when
since you want like deep dish pizza now. So
yeah, so I got obsessed with deep dish pizza the other night. So I'm like, we should go to Chicago and get a deep dish pizza.
Well, and we love deep dish pizza,
and I haven't had one in forever.
We used to be able to get it in the city, and all the
Uno's
places.
Closed.
Uno's, Mio's.
Mio's is still open.
Chinatti's.
Yeah. The Mio's you're thinking about is not open, but there are still Mio's in the city. Then there's a place called Bourbon House Pizza in Florence, Kentucky, that has deep dish pizza. So I'm going to try those places and maybe review them.
You're not going all the way to Kentucky for
I'm going to go to Florence for a pizza. Yes.
Are
yes.
you?
I mean, have you met me? I'm just talking. We're talking about going to Chicago just to take the kids somewhere and to get a pizza. So yes, I'm going to go to Florence, Kentucky to eat a pizza. And yeah, so we're going to do some traveling, which means some time away from the show. You'll not get some episodes those weeks, but we'll come back and tell you how the story goes.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We'll probably have way more Hall House theaters.
There'll be some Hall House theater episodes because there'll be some antics and some stories to tell.
Definitely.
For certain, because that's how it is with our kids. With that, I think this is probably a good time to take a commercial break. We will be right back with the Hallspace Podcast.
See you soon.
So let me tell you about Anchor Podcast. It's the podcasting service that I use. Anchor.fm is the easiest way to make a podcast, and there are many different reasons why, but foremost is it's free. So you don't need to go out and buy a whole bunch of equipment. If you have a phone or a computer and a microphone, you can record and edit your podcast right on your phone or computer. So that's one major benefit, as well as the fact that they'll distribute your podcast to several different podcasting sites for you. Not only can your podcast be found on Anchor, it can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast as well. So you don't have to worry about going to all those different sites and setting yourself up. They'll do it for you. You can also make some money on your podcast. Say you have a podcast that only 5 people listen to on a regular basis. They don't limit you on how many subscribers you have to have in order to be able to make a little bit of change for your podcast to keep yourself going. So pretty much everything you need to start a podcast can be found at Anchor.fm. So go download the app either in the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, or go to Anchor.fm to get started. And I guarantee you, it'll make things so much easier for you, like it has for me.
Love, relationships, the church, the world as we see it today and many more thought-provoking conversations. This season of Speak Kaya, She's Come Undone Talk Sessions. Coming to your ears soon. Keep watching.
Welcome back to the Hallspace Podcast.
Welcome.
I'm your host, Dr. Ritch Hall, and I'm here with my lovely and capable wife,
Nicole Hall. Welcome back to the second half.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us again. We've been talking about sort of the changes that have come with the world opening up and getting to see people and getting out and doing things.
The humaning of it all.
Yes, getting out and doing the humaning with the humans. And they talked a little bit about, having, a much shorter fuse for that. Like I've been telling people to be aware that they might not be as capable as they were before. Or as have the same stamina they had for social gatherings. I know I'm worn out from 2 or 3 days of seeing people and being around people and having to like be on in a way that I was not before.
You're used to doing it way more often, right?
Oh, absolutely.
There's this idea that, again, during this time of year, every weekend, we've got some sort of gathering, some sort of family function, work function, whatever, know. So.
Yeah. And so this is very different to not have as many activities on board. And I'm still unsure about what it'll be like to be out and about more often as the world does continue to open up more. And
it is going to feel
keep
weird.
This under control.
Yeah.
But one of the things that definitely comes up around this idea of being out and about is how presentable you are. And that goes back to recently, comedian actress Monique gained some criticism and some praise because she made some statements about women wearing bonnets. She was... I believe it was on like her Twitter or something, some of her social media, where she was discussing going to the airport and seeing women in bonnets and blankets and just looking too comfortable out in public. And she's essentially saying we have to do better as women. So what are your thoughts about the bonnet gate, as it were?
The interesting thing is this comes during the time of a pandemic where everybody is at home. So I think the increase of seeing women in bonnets and bedclothes and things like that is because it's like, I'm just running to the gas station. I'm coming right back home kind of thing. But I feel like Monique was saying it in love. You
feel like she was saying it from a place of love?
I absolutely believe she was saying it from a place of love. She's saying, we gotta do better. We have to be presentable. Like they're already, are already judging us based on, what we look like and who we are. And it just gives them more ammunition, right? Yeah. I think, for her, she was raised to look a certain way when you went out. And for those of us who are older, my grandmother was always like, hey, when you go out, you look good. Like you make sure that you look presentable. Like that was always like a big thing. Right. The interesting thing about this is that Tammy Roman from Basketball Wives had a response to it because she does Bonnet Chronicles. And they're in her home and it's just her stance on whatever's happening in the world. And she agreed with Monique for the most part, but she also said, listen, like Monique was like, oh, if you see a sister and you just tap her on the shoulder and all this other kind of stuff. And Tammy was like, don't do that. Mind your business. You can't want more for someone than they want for themselves, which I thought was very interesting, right? It's one of those things where you don't know what that person is going through. You don't know where they're coming from, right? And for you to step in like, oh, I'm gonna super save you, you got
self-righteous, a little judgmental, maybe
kahunas to do that, right? Like you have no idea. And one of the interesting things that I saw was that there was some people in the comments that were like, I feel like, we're talking about these girls in these bonnets, and you're not talking about the fact that there are some people that are in these bonnets or that they look a certain way and they're just depressed and they don't have it. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm out, I do like a headscarf, right? I haven't combed my hair, and you know what I mean? Like, there are those of us out there during this pandemic again that are just like, I just need to get milk for my kids for their cereal. I just, But my personal stance is, if I'm going out somewhere, I need to at least be presentable, right?
Yeah.
If you have to do like a head wrap, do that. You got to put on sandals, do that. But personally, I think I would love, let me say this without judgment, I would love to be able to go out in fuzzy slippers and my jammy jams and all that other kind of stuff. But
I just want to point out here how you felt when your grandmother would say, come out in her moo-moo. Okay. And now how quickly the tables have turned. The
tables have turned. So my grandmother was like, there's two sides to her, right? And this was back in the day. Like, she kind of looked like, and there are the memes of the Berenstain Bear mama, where she'd have a moo-moo and she had like a hair bonnet on. Once upon a time, my grandmother was in the blue scarves with the rollers, and she would have a moo-moo and she'd throw her coat on with her shoes, and she would drop my food off at college like that, and I'm like, oh my God. I really want this meatloaf though. So yeah. So
you had to be practical.
Yeah, you had to be practical. It's like, I love this lady. She went through all this trouble to give this to me. And legit, she is in the car. She is pulling up to the dorm. She hands me this bag of food. She kisses my face. She gets back in the car. Right?
Yeah.
And I think those kind of situations are different than, I'm just going to be out here like that. I don't care. I'm going to go to the airport in my pajamas and y'all just going to have to live with it. I feel like there's this weird sort of grayish line, right?
Yeah.
Cause I get it. I think that there have been times where it's like, I'm just running right around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't necessarily care what other people are doing, but I do think that it's one of those things that it's going to continue to be controversial. One of the interesting things that I saw was that there are men taking pictures.
Yes, men taking pictures of bonnets.
And bonnets to stand support, in solidarity. Yeah.
That's more of an internet. And that just feels like an internet
I feel like that's activism, like clout chasing.
Yeah, not clout chasing so much as just sort of being part of a thing. People love to be part of a thing. I have no mind about it. It's okay. Yeah. That's just noise.
Yeah.
In the discussion. And I do think there is a benefit to a discussion.
Yeah.
So I kind of have a nuanced thing about it. And I think as always, there is no one size fits all.
No.
And I think there are inherent in this conversation, there are multiple layers of problematicness.
Yeah.
As well as, okay, we can allow it.
Yeah.
And I feel like in approaching it, I can't help but see once again all these ways in which humans are weird.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, I do think there is something to be said for presentation. If we lived in a utopia where people did not judge you by your outward appearance, then yes, you could wear whatever you wanted. But we also have to wear pants for a reason outside.
True.
Because
otherwise,
society.
I would not wear pants.
I know. So society comes with a certain set of social rules.
Right.
And as Black people, we do need to be able to criticize each other for as we discuss.
With love.
And criticize might be too strong a word, but we definitely need to be able to discuss the rules.
Well,
and I feel like there's a problem sometimes with our ability to discuss the rules because it is immediately pushed back, particularly in contemporary society where, once again, we live in this culture with this elevated version of reality where, people feel like any criticism is bad, and the old guard is just telling the kids what to do, and they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, the biggest thing in the comments was like the women that would agree with her were older women, and maybe that's true, but there's this idea of, am I my sister's keeper?
Yes.
Right? And so I think, we were kind of.
And the younger generation always feels talked down to. It's very rare that the younger generation, particularly as we've developed this society where young people are told to have their own voice and their voice is monetized.
And they use that voice,
and so it's very rare that the young generation is like, oh, this old person is telling me something I need to know.
I shall listen to you.
I should listen to them, or at least pick from it what might be valuable.
Yeah.
As opposed to, no, I'm going to go after this person's character.
But is
or
that
I'm
something that young
dismiss
folks
the message.
Have the ability to do?
Well, I mean, the way we've raised them now, no. Because we've separated youth and age. So I tend to want to take a nuanced approach because on the one hand, you do need to be presentable in public. What is presentable though? And there's a lot of things around professionalism that are based on Eurocentric standards that I don't 100% agree with, but that there have to be some standards I do agree with.
Yeah.
And who gets to determine what those standards are? And oftentimes, young people will want to jettison standards that are there for a reason without ever questioning what they are.
So understanding where
young
they
people
come
are like, I want to be able to live the way I want. But old people are like, well, I've learned through my time and experience that
this
some of
is
these
the best way to live. Yeah.
Not the best, a way to live.
It worked for them.
Yes, what worked for them. And oftentimes older people are preparing young people for a world that existed and has evolved since they were coming up.
Yeah.
But that there are some foundational, I don't want to say truths, but often foundational elements to some of these things. And often in these conversations, there are issues of class that kind of permeate through. Yeah. So there are a number of people who don't have, say, a mother or a grandmother or whomever in their life to tell them this is how you should be presentable to be taken seriously.
Or any standards or any, I mean,
and often when we have these arguments, there are people who have like zero standards. Yeah. That we as a society just ignore as if all of the people who are having this conversation or involved are all like college educated women who should be able to choose and have agency over their bodies and their dress. And it's like, they're not all that. There are some people who do need more help and support and maybe aren't necessarily out there understanding how to sort of maneuver with agency because they don't have it for a variety of reasons. And it's like, how do we legislate an understanding for these different groups of people? Because very often we have these conversations, we're having them as if we're applying one standard rule to everyone as if
and you can't do
there
that.
aren't different people and different types of people.
Yeah. I think one of the most interesting things about this is that I have been seeing a lot of women say this is just another way to police the appearance of Black women, right? Mm-hmm. So if we're natural, we're unprofessional. If we wear weave,
I feel like that's getting into the weeds again, and that's some of the problem that I do have with some of the once again social media activism. Is that people are so trigger happy to be like, they are. Oh, how dare you come for Black women? It's like, well, but also Black women, you do have to have a certain where do your standards start and begin?
There have to be some standards
somewhere. Maybe.
Yeah. Well,
I'd like to think.
Yeah. I think that one of the good points that I saw was that it's like, so you're going to go out in your bonnet, you're going to wear your pajamas and you're going to do what you want. Would your boyfriend take you home to meet his mama like that?
I mean, once again, that's contextual by the situation. There are some situations where you should be free to run to the store and grab what you want and not have to worry about your appearance to some degree. There are other situations where you might want to be how thoughtful about it.
I don't think Monique in particular was talking about those moments. I think she's talking about, you know how long you're in the airport before you get on a plane? Like, you just at your child's school, like, you have to...
once again, situationally, where would you be?
Yeah.
That this is okay.
Right.
And are there spaces where it is okay? Are there spaces where it's not okay?
Yeah.
Who determines that?
Yeah.
Who's the arbiter of that was often a big question. I don't want to be the arbiter of that. Like, I don't care. But also I know I've had people come into my office as a doctor, dressed as if they did not know they were going to a doctor appointment. And then I might be even cataloging how they're dressed, which I have to because,
maybe
you
it's
knew you had a
based on what
professional appointment today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, let's back up for a second. You made a very clear example when you were talking about people who are depressed.
Yeah.
One of the base level interventions that I recommend for people with depression is get up, shower, put yourself together, because when you look nice, you feel nice.
Yeah.
And if you behave like a depressed person, you are only feeding and giving into the depression. And I know that it's difficult.
Yeah, it is. I was going to say it is so hard.
I never give that piece of information without addressing the fact that it takes a level of internal energy
hard to get up
to do that you might not always have, but that there will be value in it. Because if you give into the depression is often a very slippery slope. So the more ground you give it, the more ground it takes. And I know it's hard and I know it feels insurmountable, but that doing that little bit will make you feel a little bit better about yourself, which will at least give you a foothold in tomorrow. Yeah. So if that's the only thing you do all day, at the very least, you are now able, right? Because if you had a day where you look horrible, feel horrible, you have not showered in days, you have not, combed your hair, you have not put on real clothes, and now maybe you need to go out to get food that can nourish your body. You don't have it today.
Yeah.
But if you got dressed, you got up, you at least started to get the day going, you are more likely to get the momentum to move on to the next thing. Yeah. And even if it's not today, getting up and trying it again tomorrow. Yeah. And so there are times where with some of my clients, not to get too deep into this, but like I'm pushing them, like at the very least you get up, you get out of bed today. Yeah. Did you make it to class? Did you do what you need to do? Did you go to work? Yeah. Because there's a value to that. Yes. And so a lot of times we're like, well, with depression, people, we have to be understanding. And I am. When they tell me that they didn't do it, it's not like I'm very disappointed in you.
But to get out of it, you've got
But I got to sort of cheerlead you out of it. And so when we talk about societally, should we just give everybody a pass? That's not good for depressed people as much either.
Right.
You can have a pass for a certain amount of time, but you got to get back on the horse.
Right.
Because if you don't, you give into the depression and it's just going to make you feel worse. You look yourself in the mirror and you haven't washed your face, haven't combed your hair. Yeah. It's going to reflect your insides back at you in a way. But if you look at yourself and like, I feel a little bit better. I'm not 100% better.
I'm at least clean.
But I'm at least a step in the right direction. Yeah. We often are able to have a certain amount of internal and external value from that. Right. And so when we're like, as a society, should people be able to dress how they want? Not. And once again, I'm not. But I know I've been conditioned by years of, a power structure that has certain rules. But some of those rules aren't arbitrary. Some of those rules come from a place.
So, I feel like for some things, it's very simple, right? You don't wear bed clothes outside.
Yeah. Who made them bed clothes?
They're called pajamas. You can get loungewear that is, that you can wear outside that's just as comfortable as pajamas, right?
Yeah.
But you have to have that state of mind that says, okay, well, I'd like to be comfortable. This is what I'll wear, as opposed to just stepping out into the world. And again, I don't, half a dozen in one hand, six in a. I don't necessarily care.
I think
one way or another.
One big problem with the internet, and I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before, but I've thought it at least a dozen times, is that people get very caught up in whataboutism, where you're never having a conversation about just one thing. Yeah. Because it's literally, we've given society now, human society, a space where everyone can look at one piece of information and interpret it through a billion different lenses.
Multiple lenses,
6 billion lenses. All the people on the planet can now, from their experience, try to. Yeah. And this can be powerful in the sense of this allows us to now renegotiate some of the social contracts that make us who we are as creatures. Yeah. But it can also be so deafening from the noise of it that it's like, oh, this issue isn't an issue, doesn't matter. A lot of people are talking about it, so it must matter. But like, people have opinions from so many different spaces. Yeah. And if there are certain people that there are times where, you get an invasion of a certain type of person, you'd be like, ooh, this feels like this type of person is going too far. Yeah. Right? If it's a meth head and they're, in a bonnet and, throwing jars inside of a liquor store, you're like, ooh, this person should maybe take steps to be a better person. Yeah. Or if it's, a CEO of a Fortune 500 company who's doing it on her Instagram, you're like, oh, she has the agency to do what she wants. Like she can break some of those social norms. And as Black women, we do want to have, for Black women, more access to who they are as people. Like it shouldn't be completely denigrated that they do this thing.
Well, you brought up an interesting point. The idea that like Steve Jobs or whatever, when they wear slacks and gym shoes, it's like, they're real, or they're not even flashing. But if I go out looking a certain way, then it's ghetto. Right.
And Black women traditionally, I mean, we're really only like 5 years into you being able to wear your natural hair in a variety of spaces.
And that was another thing I was going to bring up. It is a law in California now.
Yeah, it's always
that you're allowed. No, they just enacted it.
I'm saying it's I'm saying that there have always been rules against Blackness. In its natural state.
Yeah.
And once again, I think that's a part of a negotiation that needs to happen. But so often when you hear these conversations, there's just people shutting each other out and not being able to listen to, well, what do you think this is? And that doesn't mean that some people don't have trash ideas. Unfortunately, people have trash ideas literally on all sides of these debates.
Well, and I think it's, like you said, there's so much noise.
Yes.
Let's focus on one thing at a time.
And sometimes I'm like, why are we even focusing on this thing? There's genuinely issues that I know I do not care about.
There are way bigger fish to fry, right? And I do think that a lot of people are saying, it's like, why are we even caring about bonnets? But people are still getting shot in the street, right?
I mean, but I understand what this activates, because it does activate some of these conversations about what's presentable.
I mean, it does.
There's a hint of white supremacy in it. There's a hint of respectability politics in it. Like there's so many of these sort of concepts that get drawn out and triggered within people as Black women have tried to navigate this society. Well, and particularly as they've gained access to a variety of different spaces that they did not have access to even 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Then they want to make a mark and to have agency in these spaces.
We do.
I get that.
Yeah, and I think the thing that makes it so complicated, again, it goes back to policing me, right? So like I've always been in corporate America. And I remember always having to have my hair relaxed. If I wore braids, it had to be not working at the bank, right? There's that. And then there's like, I've got to be wearing suits. I've got to, present myself in a way that I won't get judged too harshly because I'm already being judged harshly based on my skin tone alone, right? And so I know that for a lot of us who are natural, I've been natural for like 8 years now, wearing your fro to work or your puff to work was like a big decision.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. I mean, when I did a lot of my interviews and I was natural, I would slick it all the way back into a bun. But I finally got to the point where I was comfortable enough in the work that I was doing that I could feel freer to do that. And why is it that complicated?
Yeah.
Right? Why aren't other non-African American women not policed the same
judged.
way?
Yes.
Yeah. But I do understand that is, it's always been part of the game, right?
Yeah.
And so it's
and at the same time, you don't want to give up any ground. So
you don't want to give up ground.
You don't want to go backwards in any way.
But you do want to put your foot in the door, right? Like it's like, you want to
be able to have space and make space for people like you.
Exactly.
Which is understood. And so that's why it's like, where does this begin and end?
Yeah.
Because we can't say there are no rules. I mean, we'd like to. There are people who would love to say there are no rules. But we have to also say, we have to also be aware in the rules that we do choose. And more often than not, people in both sides of this argument are choosing rules.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're
just choosing which rule they decide is most important at the time.
Can we make a no pants rule? Because I feel like
you want to see a lot of ding-a-lings just flying around?
No,
that's
you got to wear underwear.
That's what you get when you say there's a no pants rule.
You get.
Slippery slope there.
It's a slippery slope.
Slippery slope.
I hate wearing
There's
pants.
A lot of guys who'd love to just come out pantsless.
Oh my gosh.
And it's going to be boxers, and now you have to legislate there have to be boxers with a button in the front, so the ding-a-ling
so it doesn't come out the hole of
that. Right. So I mean, I'm just saying. Once again, if you say there are no rules, there are always going to be people who break those rules.
Yeah.
And you can go full authoritarian and be like, well, the rule, this is the one rule. But you're going to start building on it when you build a society, because humans are so varied. Like I said, 6 billion. And I think that's one of the problems we have, like I said before, is one of the things that we're going to have to learn as we evolve in this social media age is just learning when to stop and go, oh, they ain't talking to me on the internet.
At all. And
that's the best lesson I've learned in the last year.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep scrolling.
The best lesson I've learned in the last year is they ain't talking to me.
Yeah.
So I ain't got to interject. I ain't got to try to change nobody's opinion.
Doesn't matter.
I ain't got to try to argue with people.
Doesn't matter.
They are not talking to me.
At all.
If they wanted my opinion, they would have asked.
Yep.
And
they don't even know you to ask you.
There are so many times where I see completely triggering conversations where I'm like, oh, they could use this person with some authority on a subject to discuss it, but they ain't talking to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we get so caught up.
We do.
And you read the comments on some things and you're like, oh man, this person just came out of left field with an opinion that this wasn't what this was about. You know, like even in this argument about bonnets, it's like, well, black men get to wear that. Nobody was talking about black men.
Nobody was talking about men in do-rags.
Like, you know how difficult it is to have a conversation when you bring up a million different examples of other things?
Yeah.
Well, cats don't have to wear clothes. Why should I have to? It's like, whoa. Like, this isn't even on subject. What are we doing?
Well, yeah, I think
in the animal kingdom, if we had never gone and crawled out of the mud, we'd never have to wear clothes. I don't see why. My bonnet. I mean, the bonnet is also a contemporary.
In the Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Well, the white man didn't taught you that you need to wear clothes at all, sister. And if you didn't, you wouldn't have periods. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, what? What?
Men get to wear do-rags.
Thank you, Mr. Hotep.
We make fun of them too. So it does get very convoluted.
Yes, so quickly. And in the end, it's like, I don't know, bonnet or not. There are some circumstances, yes, some circumstances where, don't go to a professional dinner that way, I guess.
Please don't do that.
But if you want to be comfortable while traveling, and here's the thing: if we lived in the utopia that was blacks were accepted, if we truly lived in the all lives matter world, it wouldn't matter either way.
It wouldn't matter.
But because we don't, you do have to sort of follow some rules. You can fight the rules if you want
to survive in a certain way.
You do,
yeah.
And you got
to play the game in a certain way. Yeah,
this idea of like having to shave yourself down, and you shouldn't have to do that. But I wish you didn't. Yeah. But also, you share the planet with other people. That's been my go-to phrase for the last 2 years now. You share the planet with other people, which means you are in some ways beholden to the judgments and standards of others. You shouldn't be. In a utopia, you wouldn't be. If we lived in a VR reality that you shaped yourself, it wouldn't. But play that hand or not.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. Ultimately, it's like either you can deal with it or not. Either
you can
bothers
you can work to change the rules if you want.
You absolutely could.
Understand that in working to change the rules, you're going to be fighting against forces that want to keep it a certain way.
Yeah.
And are you committed to that, or do you just want to like argue about it on the internet?
Right.
Which really doesn't.
A lot of people just be wanting to argue on the internet.
Oh my God, so many people want to argue on the internet.
Well, it's the one place I feel like people feel like they have a voice.
Yeah. Yeah,
when
that's
maybe
because so many people are acting like they listen. Like when they shout out Twitters on your average news broadcast, it's like they have basically given this group, this internet reality, a voice in society. And I think so many people are warped, as I've said before, by this. What is reality? Yeah, it is the noises, the voices I hear, and if the voices I hear are pretty much all over the place, it makes people so. I'm going to use the word schizophrenic, but not in a pejorative way, but this idea that you just don't feel grounded in any one ideology because they're, once again, you're hearing multiple. You're hearing the noise of 6 billion people's identities and voices all clamoring
making
to be
hard
heard.
To focus on any.
How do you even know who you are? Yeah. So you need anchors.
Yeah.
And I would say you have to find anchors. People find it in religion. People find it in, a lot of people find it in their careers. A lot of people find it in their family, but you need something. I was going to say family traditions are. Yeah. But we've given up even so many family traditions to, maybe we don't need these. These people are toxic. I don't need to be around them. Like so many different rejections that come with this contemporary modern society.
There are some generational curses that we're fighting against. Absolutely. We're changing and that's a good thing. But, that's this whole bonnet thing is sort of like a crumb, when we're
it's small in comparison to the battles that need to be fought. That doesn't mean it doesn't need to be a conversation. I think within it is a valuable conversation, similar to what we talked about today.
Yeah, I believe that.
But it's also noise.
A lot of it is noise, but there's the idea that if our kids go out, I want them to look nice, nice enough. Right. I mean,
presentable.
They're going to roll around in the grass no matter what.
Yeah.
Victoria's going to get stuff in her fro. I get it.
But I'm going to make sure. Like, I remember I meet 20-somethings now.
Yeah.
You know, I meet 20-somethings upper middle class kids who don't have like a suit. And they're like, I need to go find a suit because I have this interview. And you're like, you don't have a suit? Yeah, I don't have a suit or a tie. And it's like, but you got parents who understand these rules.
Yeah.
But I guess it works different for you. And so my kids are going to have a suit. They already have several suits or the ability to put together.
The kids have had suits since they were babies.
Because of my mom.
They go to church in suits because that's what you do, right?
Right.
My gift when I was 18 years old from my grandparents were like 10 suits that I could wear because I was going to be interviewing. Even if it didn't matter what kind of job I was interviewing for, but I had suits. You know, that was just what you did.
And it may not be fair, but it puts you ahead. Like, life's not really fair in that regard.
I mean, nobody said life was fair, but
people want it to be, and they're fighting for. I think you should strive for the ideal of equity.
Absolutely.
But it's not gonna be. But strive for it, please do.
Yeah.
Because until you can get all 6 billion of the people on this planet to agree to one thing, which is so hard.
Yeah.
You're not going to get complete fairness. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, and you know what?
And so you might get judged for wearing a bonnet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and regardless of anybody else's opinions, right? In the words of Victoria, our daughter, I just like to look beautiful.
Yeah.
All the time. You know?
So why not? There's a benefit to, once again, I think there's...
Personally. Yeah. Regardless of what anybody thinks of you, right? If you feel beautiful...
You should spend more of the time making yourself into a person that you want to be.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, there is some element of, if you are just completely comfortable all the time, there's an element of giving up on yourself that is more likely to start happening if you're not just putting a little bit of effort in, as I said before. And I'm not going to determine what's the most effort you should put in. Once again, that bar varies.
No, it's up to...
Your mileage may vary on what that bar, where that bar should be set.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, once again, on the things like the bonnet debate, I don't have a strong, hard, this is the way it should be. I feel like there are different situations that call for different outcomes. Yeah. And we should be, you know, anticipating accordingly.
Yeah. I mean, and again, you can't want more for people than they want for themselves.
Yes. Right. So you can't force people into.
No. I'm not sure that we should.
Yeah.
There are rules to play by, though.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's kind of how the world works. It's complicated and it's gray at best. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, you know, it's another lively discussion on the Hallspace Podcast, talking about the bonnet debate. Thank you so much for joining us for another week of this.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we love having these conversations. So glad to, like I say, so glad to hear that so many people are listening and enjoying what we're doing.
Yeah.
That you like the stories, you like sharing a laugh with us.
We appreciate you.
It's really the reason that we do it.
Yeah.
And we hope that as this became an outlet for us to get through the pandemic, where we could not share these moments with people in public, this became a way for us to share a laugh with you and check in on us and maybe check in on you. Let us know how you're doing.
Yeah, and connecting. Yep.
And tell us where you stand on the bonnet debate. What are your feelings about it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
we'll probably get a bunch of different, you know.
Yeah.
Opinions, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I welcome the opinions.
Yeah.
Whether I agree or not.
Yeah. You know what the music means.
Yes, you know what the music means. Our time is up.
I say good day, sir.
I say good day. The Hallspace Podcast is brought to you by Hall Productions, LLC. Show notes and credits can be found at our webpage, thehallspacepodcast.wordpress.com. Any questions, comments, or concerns can be sent to us at thehallspacepodcast@gmail.com. The show is written by Dagger Penn Davis. Music is curated by DJ Cabal. The show is produced by Chuck Jones and recorded at Slash and Trash Studios. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I hope you all have a good week. House Hall. We rise brilliantly.